Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for The Bodyguard.
Hello, and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my bodyguard, Julio Oliveira, and the summer of the MTV Movie Award bangers rages. I still can't get the name right, Julio. What are you calling it?
I mean, Summer of the MTV Bangers, really. And even you can shorten it to Summer of the Bangers, because the MTV is implied. If it's a banger, it got some MTV recognition, at least in the 90s.
Fair. Yes, we are here today, and a good crossover with MTV and whatnot, as one of the co-stars of this film is a fairly well-known musician, that being, of course, Whitney Houston, standing opposite Kevin Costner in the 1992 box office sensation, love-making vehicle, The Bodyguard.
Love-making vehicle. Yeah, this is the one that envelops you as you make sweet, sweet love with your partner. This is playing in the background. I'm glad you called out as the 1992 Bodyguard, Alex, because I don't know if you're aware, but there's a Netflix series called The Bodyguard that might be inspired by this. I haven't seen it. I doubt that it could capture the raw sex appeal of this movie. I think this is just a time capsule because people don't love like this anymore. It's only in the 90s.
Yes, there's a lot of things about this that are only in the 90s that we'll talk about as we move along here. But if you've never seen this movie, it lives somewhere inside of you, because I honestly don't know, unless you live in a country in which the radio frequencies are, only pumping out propaganda 24 hours a day. I don't know how you could have lived your life in this world to this point without having heard "I Will Always Love You," the Dolly Parton cover performed by Whitney Houston.
Okay, so that's one of my notes, because at some point in the movie, it comes on the radio. They're at a bar. It comes on the radio. Some dude singing it, different tempo. And so my note says...
She calls it a cowboy song.
Right. But I didn't know it was a cover. I thought that this was an original, like something that came up just for the movie. But now the Dolly Parton thing throws me off. So was it Dolly Parton, then the guy that they hear sing it at the bar, and then Whitney Houston? Where did it originate?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think they just played a cover of that for it to kind of catch her ear and, raise her eyebrow and go, I like this song. Dolly Parton, it's from the early 70s. She wrote it and recorded it in 1973. Written as a farewell to her business partner and mentor, Porter Wagner. Expressing Parton's decision to pursue a solo career. And the country single was released in 1974. Commercial success for Parton, twice reaching the top spot in the Billboard Hot Country charts. And then it was featured on the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas soundtrack. But the ballad that Whitney Houston performed of it.
That's the one that took over the world.
Yes, peaked at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for a record-breaking 14 weeks, certified diamond. Houston's first diamond single, the third female artist to have both a diamond single and a diamond album, and becoming the best-selling single by a woman in the U.S. The song was an enormous worldwide success, going number 1 in 34 official charts, with over 24 million copies sold worldwide. As I just mentioned, best-selling single of all time by a female solo artist. It was also the world's best-selling single of 1992. She won the Grammy for Record of the Year, which featured that. And The soundtrack also won Grammy, Album of the Year. The Bodyguard original soundtrack. So
remember, before Taylor, there was Whitney.
Shit. Things were a lot different too. Like those weren't downloads. It was like people went to the store to fucking buy that with money,
No crypto. Good American dollars.
Linda Ronstadt, John Doe, Amber Riley, Kenny Rogers, Leanne Rimes. Numerous people that have covered it since. And the Broadcast Music Inc. Film and TV Awards has recognized I Will Always Love You for having over 10 million broadcast performances. So, for a song that has such deep success and such a vested spot in pop culture for the past, I can do math, hold on, 50 years, it's not being dramatic to say that Whitney Houston's version of that is without question the most famous. And also, to round back to what we're talking about here today, it is the thing that if you talk to 9 out of 10 people on the street about this movie, even if they haven't even seen it, that's what they're going to bring up. Would you agree, Julio?
100%. I mean, we are both examples of that. You hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it. We knew the song. I wonder if there are people, though, Alex, that know the song, but they don't think of it as the Bodyguard song, and they think of it as the Spider-Man Far From Home song.
I mean, this is also a song that's been parodied to death. Not just like someone else performing it for comedic effect, but this song itself has been used for comedic effect in numerous television shows, films. So I guarantee there's people out there that know this song that, we're old heads also. We were raised in the 90s, so we were exposed to this. They just think it's that Whitney Houston song. But The Bodyguard is a movie. It's a film directed by Mick Jackson. I was trying to look up, I guess his name was Michael, but you can't really go by Mike or Michael Jackson ever. And so Mick's a good one. Written by Lawrence Kasdan. Do you know him from anything else, Julio?
Oh, dude. Legendary screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah, that was kind of a joke.
Well, I mean, it's been a while since he's had a movie out. Well, technically, he did the first of the new Star Wars, right? Didn't he do?
He wrote Empire Strikes Back, homeboy.
I know, but I'm talking about what would people know him today? Like the younger generation.
Yeah, he wrote The Force Awakens and then Solo, which I never saw Solo.
Okay, so he's not really out of the game. He hasn't been out of the game the way that originally I thought. But still, you're thinking of the hits. Empire Strikes Back, The Big Chill. He actually directed that one. Body Heat, I think.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. So, but those are just very traditional Hollywood blockbusters, I would say. And this one is just him writing from the heart, right? This is his love story.
This came after Grand Canyon, a 1991 film that he directed as well. It was sandwiched in between Grand Canyon and Wyatt Earp, which he wrote and directed.
Another Kevin Costner vehicle.
Yep. A lot going on in the early 90s for Mr. Kasdan. Stars Kevin Costner, Whitney Houston, and a whole slew of that guys, man.
There is that guy that I don't even know his name. The others, I know their names, but the other one is just the guy that plays Tony. I just have him on my notes as that guy, Tony.
Mike Starr.
Is that who he is? I don't know.
Yeah. He's come up several times in the history of the Contrarians just due to his that guy nature, but also he's one of the hitmen in Dumb and Dumber, which is the first thing I ever saw him in. So of course that always comes to mind, or will always be what I know him for. But yes, that guy, if there ever was one, he's in Goodfellas, if I remember correctly.
Probably. I mean, not to stereotype, but he looks like a good fella.
It's true.
He looks like the mobster version of Jeff Garlin, which is really maybe why he's just that guy and not Jeff Garlin.
I'm trying to remember what it was we did not too long ago that he was in, and I was like, hey, that guy. But man, he is that guy, and he has kind of a side role, but he gets a whole arc in this. So
yeah, he does.
Black Dahlia, that was it. He was in Black Dahlia.
There you go. I knew that he looked too familiar for it to not have been an episode of the show. I couldn't tell you who he plays. I'm guessing he's one of the cops.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he's the detective that like shows him the body and is like, all right, no one talk to the media, or so. He has some like one line.
Right. He gets more than that here. He gets an action scene.
He gets a lot in this.
For starters, I love this lady. What I do for her, I do out of love. I'm not some hired fucking gun who's here to make her life miserable.
For as much hyperbole as we're throwing at this movie to begin with, it's important to call out that for all its commercial success and to a certain extent critical success, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for The Bodyguard, currently standing at a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, I believe I saw.
That's correct, 38%.
And as we'll discuss in the second half of the show, also received a bevy of Golden Raspberry nominations. By a bevy, I mean almost everything that you can get nominated for in a movie.
Oh, it was that movie that year, the one that they pick on.
Yeah, but it didn't end up winning anything. Again, we'll circle back to it. For the purposes of what we're doing, though, this did receive a good amount of nominations at the 1993 MTV Movie Awards, including a nomination for Best Movie, Best Male Performance, Most Desirable Male, Best Breakthrough Performance, Best Female Performance, Best On-Screen Duo, and Best Song from a Movie, of course, being I Will Always Love You. What did it take home? We'll let you know in the second half.
But you can probably guess.
Yeah, it's not going to take too much of an effort. Julio, 38% of Rotten Tomatoes. Which quotes did you pull for us?
All right, here's some Rotten quotes from the Rotten Tomatoes website. We're going to start with Grant Watson from Fiction Machine, who says, "If you have never seen The Bodyguard, it is not exactly begging to be seen." I beg to differ. Alex, this is a piece of history at this point. I think if you're a cinephile, if you take your movie watching seriously, you kind of have to watch it once at least, right? For everything that we've said so far. I mean, I think that kind of sets it up.
It's a definitive, like, romantic thriller from the 90s.
Yeah, it's Whitney Houston's debut. It's Kevin Costner at his most commercial, I think. And it is the origin, the secret origin of I Will Always Love You as we know it, not as covered in the past. So, if you have any interest in film, you're going to have to. So, sorry, Grant Watson, completely disagree with you. Next, TV Guide, no critic here, just TV Guide, says, a dreary, turgid melodrama featuring the much ballyhooed debut of pop diva Whitney Houston. So I didn't know this, Alex. It was just when I was pulling out the quotes that I realized that this was her first movie. Did you know that?
Yes.
It's not her only movie, though, right?
I don't think so, but I don't remember her having like a Larry Fishburne length filmography.
She just picked the hits. But honestly, also, she must have been a little disappointed because anything that you follow up The Bodyguard with is going to be a letdown. I think that for it to come together again the way that it did here, very unlikely. Next, speaking of the screenwriter, Time Out says, Lawrence Kasdan, it seems, mulled over the first draft of his screenplay 20 years ago. It should have been left to languish in development purgatory. Can you imagine living with this story for 20 years? Constantly in your head recasting the leads? Because they have to be a certain age for the story to work. So 20 years before, so like in the early 70s, late 60s, maybe that's when he first got it. What are you casting then? Hoffman as the bodyguard?
Oh, God.
Diane Keaton?
Put him in lifts. Yeah.
I mean, okay, De Niro? Would you buy De Niro as Frank?
I mean, I could see that. It'd be a different movie, obviously.
I mean, he would kill everybody. He wouldn't just beat them up. He would just straight up kill them. All right, we're going to close with Rob Vaux from Flipside Movie Emporium, who simply asks, why can't the real Oscars be like this?
that I side with. Looking up here, just circling back real quick, I remembered Waiting to Exhale and The Preacher's Wife were the two other movies in the 90s that Whitney Houston had. But in truth, she only had one other role as an actress. I see her from a movie called Sparkle from 2012.
Oh, I don't even know that one. I always get The Preacher's Wife confused with The Astronaut's Wife and The Time Traveler's Wife. I guess only one of those has Whitney Houston in it.
Will you grab that jacket for me, the red one, please?
I'm here to keep you alive, not help you shop.
Rachel Marin, an Academy Award nominated actress and music superstar, is being sent death threats by a stalker. After a bomb explodes in her dressing room, her manager, Bill Devaney, seeks out professional bodyguard Frank Farmer, a former Secret Service agent who served on the Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan presidential details to protect her. Devaney, also another great, that guy, Bill Cobbs.
The great Bill Cobbs, I could not tell you what the Bill Cobbs movie is. I know that there's probably one, but what I always fall back to is Night at the Museum. He's one of the 3 old dudes that gain superpowers.
That's why not, you know?
I mean, I'm sure he got a pretty good paycheck out of that. So he got to beat up Ben Stiller. It's a good time at the movies.
So Frank reluctantly accepts Devaney's offer, but feels Rachel is a spoiled diva, oblivious to the threats against her life. So Kevin Costner in this is no nonsense. And when they meet here in the beginning, my first note just says a collection of that guys. It's not so much a meet cute as it's a meet tense. And that Whitney Houston doesn't believe she needs the protection, and I don't think cares for the terse demeanor of Frank Farmer here. And immediately also Mike Starr, Tony, who's her bodyguard, or more just like security at this point, he's immediately intimidated by this. He's like, who does this guy think he is? And, it really shows how lax and unprofessional her level of protection was, because already there's the problem if someone broke into the home. They throw in the really unnecessary detail of the person masturbated in her bed. And I can understand why Costner's getting like, what the fuck is going on here? Because they're also keeping all of this from Rachel.
Right. I was going to say in her defense, she doesn't know how bad it is.
Yeah, she doesn't know the level of danger she's in.
This is the Costner persona, right? I'm trying to remember if we've ever talked about Kevin Costner on the show beyond laughing at his depiction of Jonathan Kent in Man of Steel.
Yes.
But I don't think that we've done a Kevin Costner movie. I know we've talked about them, but this is the Kevin Costner as you imagine him whenever somebody brings him up. It's just like a manly man that's no nonsense, man of few words. If you make him smile, you feel like $1 million because that doesn't happen very often. And smart, right? Like that's he comes in playing into the type. I think that audiences that went to see the new Kevin Costner movie were not disappointed from minute one, because I think, doesn't he shoot somebody the opening of the movie just to show that he's a badass?
Yeah, and has like a drink with whoever he's protecting. Like, how'd you know? Or where'd you see him? And he breaks down why he's good at his job.
Yeah, and I believe it. I buy it. So then when Whitney Houston shows up and she's being all loud and dismissive and, at least on the surface, disrespectful of Kevin Costner's craft, I was like, oh, here we go. I can see why this movie's 2 hours and 10 minutes, because these two are going to clash, but also because opposites attract. So at some point, I just know that they're not going to be able to help themselves. Could you tell, Alex, what the arc of this movie was going to be, right? Like, they hate each other, they're going to fall for each other, they're going to hook up, they're going to break up because one of them is going to do something stupid, but then at the end, they're going to come together again. That's classic cinema. Or were you too spellbound by the performances to be able to tell what was going to happen next?
Well, one thing I immediately was like, is her sister, Nikki, is one of like her, for like right-hand women. Like, she's not a hanger-on per se, but we linger on her a bit too long in every shot. And the way she kind of looks around and surveys the scenes, I was like, I wasn't predicting like a Selena type outcome here, but I was like, there's going to be something along the way that goes awry with this gal. And so that was like the first, potential trope, or, just from my experience of watching way too many movies over the course of my life, I was like, well, I'm going to keep an eye on that. But as far as the actual premise of the movie, I thought this movie, like the plot is pretty paint by numbers, but some of the like twists we take along the way and some of the execution of the material is not very predictable.
Yes. Yeah, you follow the beats that I just described, but not exactly the way that you would expect. I think as you were talking about the sister, Alex, I realized that maybe that's why the masturbation scene was detail was necessary, because that throws you off the scent, right? That's like, oh, well, it wouldn't be the sister, because obviously the way they talk about it, it sounds like it was a man who masturbated in that bedroom. So, but I'm with you. I also thought that she seemed a little too resentful to be innocent. The other thing is that Costner, the big question, if you're not paying attention, I guess, is why is he taking this job, right? Because it's not the money. He seems to be pretty well off. And at first he kind of makes Bill Cobbs beg for it, but eventually he agrees. And then when he shows up, she's a nightmare. And the surroundings are a nightmare. Her entourage is a nightmare. Why is this dude that is so by the book, so I'm not going to put up with this shit, why is he taking the job? And well, the answer is obviously he finds her interesting. He probably finds her attractive right off the bat. It's fucking Whitney Houston. So without really saying it explicitly, the movie's already showing you, giving you a hint that Costner may act like he doesn't care, but really he has a heart already. We're on the heels of doing our Romeo and Juliet episode, where half the movie is just the characters telling each other how much they love each other. This movie doesn't fall in that trap. This movie is more about how the characters look at each other and what their actions reveal about their feelings. So it was refreshing. This was a lot more of a grown-up romance. I could picture my parents, going to see this movie and having a good time.
And he has a hard time getting close to folks because of his job, and we learned a little bit more about that a little bit more with each kind of act of the film. Another piece of the puzzle goes into place. Rachel soon accuses Frank of being paranoid, complaining that his extensive protection techniques are intrusive. However, he and Rachel grow closer when he rescues her from danger after a riot erupts at one of her concerts. Her existing bodyguard, Tony, resents Frank's presence, leading to a brawl between them in the kitchen. So there's this concert at like a smaller club that she's advertised, and she doesn't know the level of danger she's in. She gets there and she finds this letter, and that's kind of when the lid's blown off, like, oh no, not another one. And she's like, what do you mean another one? So Kevin Costner's like, we got to get out of here. And she at first acquiesces, but then when she hears she has the Randy the Ram moment where I belong out there, because she's trying to leave, and then she hears the crowd chanting her name. She says something to the effect of, no fucking freak's going to stop me from playing. My note just says Rachel must pose. And
she climbs the ropes.
Yes. And she eventually, because of the lack of security and the intimacy of the venue, the crowd makes its way on stage. She gets kind of swallowed into, she for a moment is like being body surfed across the throngs of fans, but then she kind of falls in and is at the risk of getting trampled here. And so Kevin Costner saves the day, and he picks her up and like honeymoon carries her out this escape route he has. And that's one of the visuals of the movie you always think of, is even if you haven't seen it, you've seen like the box art of the poster where he's carrying her in the rain and shit. So a pretty iconic scene here right up front.
Men and women everywhere, 1992, they left the theater wishing that Kevin Costner would carry them home. That's just the power of that image. Have you ever been in that situation, Alex? Been at a show where things get a little too out of control with the crowd?
Yes.
Was Whitney Houston body surfing on top of you?
No, there have just been wrestling, it's like independent wrestling shows I've been to. I give shit to these fans today that don't. If you've never been in fear for your safety at a pro wrestling show, I don't want to hear it. Like, like the bad chairs, or like the bad, like, wrestlers getting too close or whatnot. There was a couple times I would look to Brody and I'd say, do we have a clear line for the door? Like,
you were like Kevin Costner, he's yelling across the room, like, clear the aisle.
Pretty much. Anytime fire would come out in these venues that the ceiling was like, I didn't want to go Great White style. So it was always like making sure I had a straight line to the door. And there were a couple times that tensions boiled over with fans. There was one night like where it was like 2 steps away from like a full riot happening. So yes, But no one as pretty as Whitney Houston's ever been there. And then sadly, no one like Kevin Costner came in to kind of punch us all and throw us out of the way.
So you've never carried anybody out, and nobody's ever carried you out.
No, I don't think I've carried anyone out of a situation like this. Should put it on my bucket list.
I mean, apparently it leads to a very meaningful connection.
Well, I would imagine so. He's like, that's one of the most intimate things you can do, man.
Save someone's life.
Yeah. And we, I mentioned it here in the plot synopsis, but then we get like the actions for a movie that has a lot of action. We get like the action scene, the artistic avant-garde scene of Mike Starr coming in and trying to fight Kevin Costner, and he's just not able to get a single. It's like when Neo's first trying to fight Morpheus, and
Yes.
he hasn't learned anything yet. And to make it better, it's like there's no score or any type of like radio or TV on during this, so you just hear the sound of Mike Starr getting his ass whooped by Kevin Costner.
In between, Kevin Costner is finishing an apple, I think.
It's a plumber, but he's got his knife out, and he's like fucking an old scoutmaster just cutting slices off of his own apple or whatever it is.
So it gets you everywhere. No matter what, at the end of these 10 minutes or so, you are just so hot for Costner. If somehow you resisted the fact that the visual of him carrying Whitney Houston in the rain out of that riot into the limo and just saving her life, if that didn't get you, then what's going to get you seeing Kevin Costner completely dominate Tony, Mike Starr. And then, like you said, this is the beginning of this is stage one of the Mike Starr journey. When this happened, Alex, did you think that these two were going to end up friends by the end of the movie?
No, and it honestly led to possibly my favorite moment in the whole movie. So we'll circle back there when we get to it. Though Frank tries to remain professional, he and Rachel sleep together. The next day, he breaks off the affair, realizing it compromises his ability to protect her. Hurt, she begins to defy Frank's security measures. Then, to make him jealous, flirts with his former Secret Service colleague, Greg Portman, whom she meets at a Miami party. So she wants the wholesomeness and experience of like a date. And so she and Kevin Costner go to a movie. They go to a bar. That's where they hear the song for the first time. They go back to his apartment. We get to see Kevin Costner, a picture of him in a football uniform, which is pretty sweet. We get some really unexpected knife play.
Sword play. He has like a samurai sword. So they have sex, Alex, but we don't see it. Were you surprised that an R-rated movie from 1990, from the 90s, did not feature something a little more explicit, considering this is the only time they have sex in the movie?
I think we're not close enough to the end of the 90s yet to where the excess of nudity and, pushing the bound, we're not ready for In the Cut yet. And I think the early 90s, and especially something with two classically good looking people like Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner, I think the titillation is more. I can just hear kind of the middle-aged women, the
parents everywhere. You're right.
Like the sigh when the scarf rips over the samurai sword, and just kind of the piqued interest.
Is that symbolism?
Just turning to their friends. He's going to cut into her like that.
We did, back in the early 90s, we didn't need them to show us more than what they show us here, because we have good imaginations, and these two actors have great presence. They're very attractive. They're very charismatic. We can imagine what they get up to that night. And the fact that the next morning Costner doesn't want to talk about it makes it even better. Right? It's almost like the sex scenes that you don't see in Double Indemnity. You're like, what happened? This man has changed forever.
He says, I got involved with my client. He says that to himself, like, damn it, you let yourself down here, Frank. She rightfully is like, what the fuck did I do? Because it's Whitney Houston, for crying out loud. Early 90s Whitney Houston. Just unbelievably gorgeous woman.
She's like, I didn't hear any complaining last night.
Yeah, no shit. And so he's going to try to remain professional, I guess, now. One thing I was not expecting with this, but it was tickled pink. to hear was the old Entertainment Tonight theme. They smash cut to when they're going to Miami. And so I was like, and it's, I think, is that another John Tesh classic? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you this. As soon as they said that she was nominated for the Oscars, I was like, all right, please tell me that the climax takes place at the Oscars. Because you can't put that out there without expecting your audience to really assume that that's what's going to happen. When was Last Action Hero?
94?
No.
Damn it. 93.
93. Okay, so a year after. But still, so there was something in the water. Because that one, the climax is pretty close to the Oscars too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, Alex. I paused the movie to see if I could identify the other 4 nominees when they showed that newspaper.
I did too.
Yeah. Drew a blank.
Well, there's that cameo from Debbie Reynolds later in the movie where she goes, I told you she was crazy, that I thought was pretty funny.
I always said she was nuts.
When her stalker threatens her with a phone call, Rachel finally recognizes the seriousness of the situation and her need to trust Frank completely. Frank, Rachel, her son Fletcher, her older sister Nikki, and her driver Henry then travel to a large lakefront cabin in the mountains, the home of Frank's father, Herb. So, a little bit to catch up on here. When we're in Miami, this Portman fellow clearly knows the backstory of Frank and just says, in a very pregnant statement, he says, that whole Reagan thing wasn't your fault. There's one allusion to Ronald Reagan earlier in the movie in which Kevin Costner explains that he was head of his security detail, and someone says Ronald Reagan got shot when he was president, and he said, not on my watch. And so, that's kind of ominous. And then we hear this, and it's like, oh. And then we mentioned to make Frank jealous, Rachel kind of flirts up this Portman fella, and unfortunately, this guy doesn't know that no means no, and Mike Starr has to step in, and it's kind of an awkward diversion. I guess it kind of comes back to making a little bit of sense later in the movie, but in the moment, it was like, well, this is gross.
By the end of the movie, we realized that guy was not at that party by accident, right? He kind of says, oh, yeah, I'm covering for the governor, and right now I'm just scoping the place out because he might show up at this party. But now we know that that's not true, that he was there just because he was checking out Whitney Houston. So it's all carefully constructed.
She is the biggest star in the world.
This also, of course, happens to be another step in Mike Starr's rehabilitation, right? He's
Correct.
gone from being completely useless to being somewhat useful. Because Costner, once Whitney Houston drags that guy into the room, Costner's like, well, fuck this. And he walks away. He's human, Alex. He's not infallible. He takes his eye off the prize, off the client. And then, thankfully, Tony is there to save the day. This made me think, and again, going back to Romeo and Juliet, perhaps the ultimate thesis of this movie is that it doesn't matter the age, it doesn't matter the experience. Love will turn you into a teenager in the worst possible way, right? As far as dumbing you down. Confirm. They love each other, but they hate each other, and they drive each other crazy, and they try to make each other jealous. And it's universal. That's a universal truth. Love will fuck with your head.
And Frank's head is definitely scrambled because when she finally says, hey, I'll do what you say. Just tell me what we need to do. He says, you need to cancel the rest of your tour. And he tells her exactly who to send off to the side for a while. And then for some reason, putting his dad in immediate danger, he decides to take them all to his dad's cabin.
It doesn't say where they went, right? You just said the mountains, but yeah, I was hoping it would be Alaska.
Very scenic. And then we get his dad quickly into our time there explaining the whole thing to Whitney Houston, what the Reagan thing was. And that was on Frank's day off in which he was burying his mother. That's the day that Ronald Reagan got shot, and he never forgave himself for it. Another tie in there because they had to move the Oscars back a day or two because of that.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that Reagan had ever been shot. I guess that's...
Yeah, dude. No, remember the guy who shot him was trying to impress Jodie Foster because he was obsessed with Taxi Driver?
I didn't know it was Reagan. I knew that there was a crazy dude that was like, oh, Jodie Foster told me to do it. I only know that because of Seven, because Brad Pitt has that line.
Well, W was in office when you moved here, so, right?
Yes, right? Obama started when?
08.
08. Oh, yeah. It was
No.
W. Yeah, duh, because it was right after 9/11. Yeah, so I missed out on all the fun Reaganomics and the like.
Oh, well, don't worry. We're still suffering from it. So,
I mean, can you imagine in the future, like 20 years from now, some lucky bastard is not even going to know what it was like to be under the Trump presidency? It's just going to be like, oh, yeah, really? He got shot in the ear? He raised his fist? That happened? I'm like, yeah, man.
I don't know. You've seen Mad Max Fury Road. I think we might be heading in that direction. So,
what's a presidency?
Obama, the good-looking guy with suits and that talked really sensibly, he led the country. The next day, Frank rescues Fletcher from a small motorboat. Fletcher, by the way, is Whitney Houston's little boy.
Just the right side of precocious.
Yes. And Frank is quickly becoming a mentor and a father figure to him. But he rescues him from this motorboat just before it explodes. So the jig is up. After he secures the house for the night, a drunken Nikki, upset that her nephew could have died, admits that she had hired a hitman to kill Rachel during a fit of jealousy. This not before she came on to Costner the night before.
Yeah.
And she tried to kiss him, and he just did like it's even worse than like getting pushed away for a kiss is when someone just like freezes and stares at you. Like, what did you expect to accomplish by doing that?
He doesn't even close his eyes.
Nope.
It's like she's kissing a statue. Look, this whole mini story with the sister is fascinating because she goes for Costner and you buy it, right? It's been simmering throughout the movie, the resentment that you can see. She even, at some point, she gives Costner her backstory about how she wanted to be an actress, she wanted to be a singer, but then once Whitney Houston, who's the younger sister, decided that she wanted to pursue show business, it became clear that she was the one with the talent, and the older sister was just relegated to be in the backup. And so when she goes for Costner, you can tell that that's a way of maybe finally getting something that her sister wants and maybe has had, but now she wants it for her. Costner turns her down. And then the next morning, there is this amazing scene where Costner and her dad and the kid are like out walking, and then they hear the older sister singing, right? And I was like, oh, look, being rejected by Costner inspired her to return to music. That's what I thought. And then she's in the middle of the song and fucking Whitney Houston comes out and completely upstages her.
Oh, yes, he does. For the Bible tells me so.
But she doesn't even realize that she's doing it, right? She doesn't do it on purpose. In Whitney Houston's head, she's just helping her sister. They're singing together. But you can tell that she ruined the moment. So then later when it's revealed that the sister was behind the plot to kill her, I'm like, that makes fucking perfect sense. Because I saw what she did. and she did it without even thinking. So imagine a whole lifetime of that. Yeah. Of course, this is the big twist moment, right? The scream twist. There's two creeps. Because throughout the movie, we've also been getting flashes of this blonde dude, like the most stereotypical serial killer / stalker.
I have in my notes here the Owen Wilson Tim Roth hybrid. So yeah, you think it's him, but it turns out he's just literally just a loon who's been sending her those letters. But he can. We don't get to spend much time with him, but he can barely even form a sentence.
Right.
So it's a two-pronged attack, Julio.
He has to be the one that masturbated on the bed, though, in the bedroom, right?
I don't want to think about that.
Well, somebody has to have done it.
It was Mike Starr. Tony is in there. Oh, fuck. You can imagine just like he did it on accident. Like he missed the Kleenex or whatever. And it was just like, hey, guys, someone fucking blew a load in here.
Quickly writing a note.
Yeah, like he takes a crayon and scribbles like, I'm gonna kill you. And then he's like, oh, must be that psycho. However, the letters from the stalker had come before that. There we go. Nikki had already paid in full and does not know the killer's identity. Abruptly, The hitman breaks into the dark house and fatally shoots Nicky. Frank pursues the killer in the woods, shoots at him, and misses. The assailant escapes. He then learns that the stalker had been apprehended earlier that day and was in custody when Nicky was killed. So, couldn't be him. A few days later, after Nicky's funeral, the Academy Awards ceremony occurs. Frank gives Rachel a panic button in the shape of a cross to immediately alert him of any trouble. This actually comes early in the movie, probably in the first act. And it would have to be the first act because it's fucking Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come into play at any other part in the movie. So you're like, okay, they got to pay off this cross gimmick here. Despite this, though, many backstage technical issues hamper Frank's efforts to monitor the proceedings closely. Now, when we get to the Academy Awards, Julio, I think there's 35 minutes left in the movie. And I was like, well, how are they going to do this? It's because of this. They keep throwing all these wrenches at us where the plan goes wrong. And I'm not going to say drags it out, but just makes it more engaging and provides us with a very thorough finale.
I think it's fun, too, that you get to focus on Costner and Tony and Bill Cobbs, Whitney Houston. And then, man, we haven't brought him up once, but they're one of the most unlikable characters in the movie is, I guess it's her manager, her PR person.
Cy.
Fuck that guy. I mean, the best possible way. Like, he's supposed to be hateable. He gets a pretty awesome final shot in this movie. But you can focus on them because the movie wisely doesn't do stunt casting once you get to the Oscars. Debbie Reynolds, like you said, shows up at the very end. But other than that, there's no real celebrities, right? They're all made-up actors, like made-up names.
Well, the guy hosting is Vicky Vale's partner from Batman.
Yes, he is. I was trying to remember because he looks kind of like John C. Reilly. So I was like, that's why he looks familiar because he looks like John C. Reilly. But no, you're right.
Alexander Knox. Robert Wool was his name. And had a pretty steady acting career for himself. He was in that Saturday Night movie you liked. He played Dave Wilson.
Oh, unrecognizable. But so he's playing himself, right? Because they call him Robert.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he might be the only one. Did you recognize anybody else?
No. This certainly isn't. I think I referenced Tropic Thunder in our last episode, so I apologize for going back to that well. But, oh no, it was the Crush patron episode I referenced it on because Alicia Silverstone there. Point being, I love the Oscar conclusion of that movie because it is a lot of extras filling in seats. But then if you're paying close attention, there's some people in there that don't even have speaking lines that you're like, John Voight, say what you will, but he's fucking hilarious. He doesn't have a line in that, but you just see his reaction to losing and it's fucking hilarious. So a little bit different of a movie here, though. We want the focus to remain on Whitney and Kevin.
Yeah, it's not a comedy, so I think that it automatically makes it feel lighter if you have, I don't know, who the fuck would be there in the 90s, right?
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, getting ready for Philadelphia. Yeah. So it's good that it's just a bunch of no names, and I guess this Robert Moll fella, they're making the most. He's supposed to be the Billy Crystal of the night.
No disrespect, Bob, but the charm is not on the level of Billy.
No.
I mentioned possibly my favorite part in this movie, and it's what leads us into the Oscars ceremony when Whitney Houston's limo is pulling up, and Kevin Costner's looking around, just surveying the scene, and Cy or someone tells Tony, go in this entrance, and listen. I think they might even tell him listen to Frank. And Kevin Costner, while he doesn't break his stride, he's looking out the window. He goes, Tony knows what he's doing. And then Mike Starr has the Donnell Logue realization in The Patriot where he's just like, maybe this guy's, you know what I'm talking about? It's maybe 10 seconds where he kind of slowly looks over at him and they don't make eye contact, but he's like, he accepted me.
In a way, the Costner-Starr relationship has been as important to the movie as the one with Whitney Houston. Because it was, like you said at the very beginning, there's a journey to this. It doesn't even end there. There's a little bit more to come. Mm-hmm. Something that I kept thinking during the movie, Alex, and maybe you did as well, is that we started 2025 with a very different movie about a bodyguard that thoroughly fails to protect his client. And I kept thinking, what if Kevin Costner had been there to protect PETA in Man of Fire? Would she even have been abducted? Because he seems so on top of his game.
Been a much shorter movie.
Yes. He would be able to tell right away that you couldn't trust Mark Anthony. You can't trust Randy the Ram. Mickey Rourke gets shot like in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then that's it. And then because it's Kevin Costner, he would have sex with Radha Mitchell. Just full service.
And then the last 45 minutes of the movie is him and Christopher Walken just, reenacting the plot of Las Vegas.
Meanwhile, if you put Denzel in this movie, I think that he would fuck some people up. He would definitely kill Mike Starr in that fight. But also he would get too up in his emotions. I don't know that he would make it to the end. I think he would just walk out on the assignment, and then eventually Whitney would suffer for that. So I guess this is my way of saying that for all his occasional missteps, I think that Kevin Costner's Bodyguard is a superior bodyguard compared to Denzel Washington's.
Yeah, Portman was interested, but we heard that you were the best.
There's no such thing.
While presenting an award, Rachel freezes and runs off stage, angry at Frank for embarrassing her with his overprotective measures. Later, Rachel is announced as the winner for Best Actress. Still, as she comes on stage to accept the award, Portman is revealed to be the hitman, masquerading as the bodyguard for the ceremony's host. Frank notices Portman pointing a gun disguised as a camera at Rachel and prepping for a fatal shot. Now, shortly before she takes her seat to win the award, this is where Kevin Costner puts it all together, and he calls over Tony and he fills him in. And at this point, someone's given Cy, I think, given Kevin Costner shit. Yeah, he tells him, "You know nothing about show business," and Tony's like, "You're an asshole," and like tells him to fucking hold on or something. And he basically gives Mike the orders, but in mid, they don't have the radios anymore, so he sees him heading towards there, and he figures out that he fucked up, and Portman has the camera, and Tony goes up behind him. He's like, "What the fuck you doing?" and turns him around, and he like just Roddy Piper style pokes him in an eye, and and so he goes down in pain, and then he fucking judo chops him like Austin Powers to the back.
Did you expect Tony to lose an eye when that happened? Like, could you tell that was a killer blow? Not a killer blow for his eye? Because tiny spoiler jumping ahead, he ends the movie with an eye patch.
Mm-hmm.
So could you tell that that's what had happened? Because I didn't. I thought that he got hurt, but I didn't realize that it was that bad.
I thought he did do like the pro wrestling, like two fingers thing. Not pro wrestling. That's Three Stooges, man. That predates that. But I thought that's what he did. But he must have like stabbed him or something. Because yeah, he has a jaunty eye patch to round out the movie, and like looks like I want that to be the sequel, is seeing where Mike Starr goes from here with his eye patch and who he's going to be protecting. Well, he's still on Rachel's detail, but still, I need that movie. And he gets like kind of a badass thing, because when the gunfire goes off, he's like holding his eye and he's like, "Portman, where the fuck are you?" And he's trying to exact justice. Costner, Frank, runs on stage, leaps in front of Rachel, and takes the bullet meant for her. As chaos erupts among the audience, Portman targets Rachel again, only to be shot and killed by Frank. While Rachel urges Frank to remain conscious and calls for help, he slowly passes out. Now, one of the unexpected things I mentioned here, for the level of romance and even, overly saccharine as some of the exchanges have been, and, we even get a few scenes of, people relying on alcohol as a crutch. We get the scene of Kevin Costner fucking down on a bottle of vodka. So there is some seriousness. I wasn't quite prepared for how violent the gunshots were going to be here at the end. Portman literally gets shot and like his chest explodes, and there's a woman in a white dress that gets covered in blood like, ah!
To be fair, there is a moment earlier in the movie when one of the times that Costner and Whitney Houston have gotten into it, and so Costner's just storming out, and he goes by the kitchen of the hotel where they're staying, and he gets into a fight with one of the cooks, and he beats the shit out of that cook. And did you notice that the cook's blood is all over the wall?
Yes.
In that scene? So I was like, okay, they're playing for keeps here when it comes to the violence. But yeah, you're right. When Portman gets shot and that woman gets sprayed with all the gore, that was pretty awesome. There's a lot going on here because there's the fact that Costner saves Whitney Houston's life, but she doesn't seem to realize it at first. So first she's scolding him. She's like, "What are you doing? You're ruining my moment."
Yeah, and then there's blood, and she realizes, wait, this isn't mine.
But then there's also blood all over the envelope that was announcing her as the winner. And so
Very, very artistic. That's the Criterion cover, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Because Cy picks it up and he sees that it's covered in blood and then he wipes the blood, but the blood won't come off and so it just smears. It's like, my God, Kasdan, art.
Old Mick Jackson here knows how to frame a shot, I tell you what.
Yeah, he may not be able to moonwalk, but he can shoot a climax for sure. And then, of course, we get I guess it's not necessarily the titular line because the word bodyguard has been thrown around a lot. And I'm sure that other people have said, oh, that's the bodyguard. But I think this is the iconic bodyguard related line, right? When she screams,
He's my bodyguard!
I mean, what else is there to say?
The only way it could have been better is if she picked him up and honeymoon carried him out to the limo. Frank recovers from the shooting and bids farewell to Rachel at the airport, both knowing their relationship would never work out. As the plane starts to take off, Rachel suddenly orders the plane to stop, jumps out, and runs to Frank for one last passionate kiss. Man, this is what movies are, dude. Like she hops off the plane and runs into his arms, and they kiss, and we get like, I think 2 whole 360 rotations around them and the song is playing, and yeah, man, this doesn't have to be your kind of movie, but this is what we make movies for.
You have to appreciate the craft. You have to appreciate the fact that, especially if you're like us and you've watched similar movies, you get to appreciate stuff like the fact that Peter Bogdanovich did not go this far when he did They All Laughed. Remember the end of They All Laughed when he's saying goodbye to the woman that he was guarding, the woman. Is it Audrey Hepburn, right? Yeah. And they know that they can't be together. And all they do is just exchange glances. And that's it. There's no 360. You know, there's the artsy way of doing it, and then there's the fucking Hollywood blockbuster way of doing it, which is the way that they do it here. The Whitney Houston song comes out of nowhere, but it's great because I think that anybody that's watching it after the fact, like we are, like you're waiting the entire movie for that for that song to come on. Like she sang a few times throughout the movie, but she never sang this song. And they tease you about it in the bar, right? When she recognizes, she's like, "Oh, what is this song?" So you know that she's gonna cover it at some point. I thought maybe it was the song that she was gonna sing at the Oscars, but instead, no, it's just like the song that carries us to the end credits. I mean, it's just the technique. It's impeccable. But of course, I had to laugh in a gentle way, not like mocking the movie, but just the fact that it all leads to a freeze frame of Kevin Costner.
Yes, on his new assignment.
Yeah, he's guarding the Pope. Who's he guarding?
A minister is leading like a prayer, but I don't know if that's who he's protecting. But it could be, though, because he has the cross that looks similar to what he gave Whitney Houston.
Is this movie better if he dies, Alex? And she sings the song at his funeral?
No. You have to have that kiss. As by the books, as paint by numbers as it may seem, this movie not concluding the way it did would have felt like something got away from you. Because they still don't end up together is the important thing. Right. They just have the last embrace, yeah.
That's the thing that really makes it memorable. It makes it feel like real life despite everything else. I knew that we were heading towards a Hollywood final moment. I just didn't know if it was going to be him running after the plane and then the plane stops so he can get on and kiss her one last time. Or even better, like the way they did it. She's the one that stops it. Because, you know, she's been the one that's been giving him a hard time. So the fact that she's the one that makes the call and then goes and kisses him one last time, that's really what you said. That's what we watched the movie. That's what anybody wanted from the moment that they saw the poster. And they said, yeah, I want 2 tickets to that one. And then, you know that all those couples drove back home with the I Will Always Love You blasting on the CD player.
Absolutely.
That was The Bodyguard, Alex. I'm just like soaking in testosterone, and it's not mine. It's Kevin Costner's.
Yeah, man. This song's going to be stuck in my head for the next week or so, and no regrets. curious to see where you actually land on this, though. So if you are ready, we already had our embrace, but it's time to get on the plane and take it over to Real Talk.
I'll put my eye patch on.